Eikenberry, and I'm happy to be joining you today. I see we got a lot of people here, and we're glad that you're here. Excited to be spending some time with you this morning talking about presenting and presenting more effectively. So if you're joining us from some other way, then you may not know exactly why I'm doing this. But every Monday morning, our newsletter comes out, Unleashing Your Remarkable Potential. And this morning I said, hey, I'm going to get on today and I'm going to talk a little bit about what I wrote about today. And that's exactly what I'm going to do. I'm going to share some more stuff with you on top of that. So we're going to focus on the topic that I promised you, how to earn people's attention in your next presentation. But before we're going to do that, I'm going to talk a little bit about what I talked about in the greeting of the newsletter, which is actually, as it turns out, related. So depending on who you believe or which report you read, this might be the anniversary, the 55th anniversary of a famous event at the United Nations when Nikita Khrushchev took his shoe off, which I will not do, and used it to make a point at the United Nations. Now, the story goes that he banged his shoe. There is no video of this. There is no picture of this. There is a picture of him holding a shoe, which some people think is fake. So, first of all, the first question is, did he actually, which day did he do it? 4 different dates have been proposed. Did he do it? And some people actually think he brought a third shoe, didn't actually take his shoe off. He actually brought a third shoe with the purpose to make the point. Now, all of this is sort of happenstance, doesn't really matter, but here's the interesting thing about it from my perspective. The interesting thing about it from my perspective is that it was all about making a point, trying to get people's attention. And so that's what I want to talk about today. But before I dive into the points that I made and explain them a little bit more and answer any questions that people have, I sat in the chair next to me here. Someone sat in this chair a little bit ago interviewing for a job with us, and she asked me a question about having the energy that it takes to give presentations and do video and all that sort of thing. And we had a little conversation about the importance of energy in a presentation and the level of energy that you use and the way that in which you create it. And the comment that I wanted to make here is that some people would say I can use energy as a way to actually help with attention. Because if I am a speaker and regardless of what my opening points are, if I talk like this, and my energy level is low and my everything is slouching, then that's not going to help me get people's attention. It's going to make it that much faster. People are going to go to their phones, start doing something else, take a mental vacation, and not be with me. So before we even get to earning people's attention, energy certainly is part of it. That doesn't mean that we need to be manic or frantic or overly energetic, but the energy that we bring is important. Let me tell you where that energy needs to come from. That energy needs to come from 2 things: our belief in our topic and our focus on the audience. If we try to manufacture the energy for ourselves, first of all, it will be exhausting. And second of all, it won't be what will really work. So the energy must come from a belief in the subject. This is something I really am excited about wanting to share with you. So it's the audience at the end of the day that matters most, which takes us in to the first point. And I have my notes here, which is really just a copy of what I wrote and shared this morning in the newsletter. By the way, anyone, if you click on your screen, we'll get the little props thingy. So if you've never used Blab, it's kind of fun. Just touch your screen somewhere and you'll see little hand props there. See, look at that. And so Marissa is showing you how to do it. Just so you know how this particular platform works. This will show if I'm actually getting any of your attention, if you're actually paying attention, I suppose. So I'm going to go through these points. And I want to be very clear about it, that this energy point that I made to even start the conversation relates directly to the big idea of the whole thing. So I've got 6 points to share with you about earning people's attention. The most important one is the third word in the topic. How do I earn people's attention? Because what most people want to do is they want to ask themselves, how do I get their attention? What can I do to get their attention? And see, the focus there is all wrong. The focus there is on what do I need to do. But if I'm focusing on earning someone's attention or earning anything, it has to be about the other person? What will make this of value to them? So the first thing about earning people's attention is that you ought to be thinking about it, and that you ought to be thinking about it from a perspective of earning, not getting, which means that it's all about them. That is a huge part of this. Keep that in mind. It'll make all of the difference, okay? The second one is, in order to earn their attention, in order to put that focus on them, it immediately takes us to putting ourselves in their shoes. And this is not back to Khrushchev and using your shoe, but rather thinking about the topic from the perspective of the audience. And I'm going to be giving 2 different presentations this week. One tomorrow to a group of about 40 managers and leaders, and one on Friday to a group of about 400 plus leaders and managers. Different situations, different topics, different context. In both cases, here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to spend time in the room prior to my talk, not 5 or 10 minutes, but a couple of hours ahead of my talk. Why? Because I want to do everything I can to know exactly where the group is, what's going on with them, how it's working for them. This is critical. See, me doing this, here's what I can tell you. That before I drive to Bloomington, Indiana tomorrow, I'm going to have a pretty good idea how I'm going to open my presentation with the goal to earn their attention. I'm also equally confident that it will change at least a little bit between what I'm thinking about today and on my way to Bloomington tomorrow and what I actually do. Why? Because of the time I'm going to spend with the group. It's going to change my context. I'm going to know exactly what they've just been talking about, exactly what they're thinking about, so I can make a direct connection to that. Right? I want to know what's relevant to them. In the piece, I wrote this: repeat after me. It's not about me, it's about them. And I would say that the next time you're getting ready to give a presentation, it's not about you, it's about them. What are their needs? What are their concerns? What are their issues? What's going on in their life? How can my topic, how can the points that I want to make serve them? Until I figure that out, there's no way that I can truly earn their attention. Critical part of all this, right? So the third thing on the list was that, and write this down, that attention follows interest. If I'm going to earn someone's attention, it must start with me having their interest. I got to get them interested and care enough. Welcome to all those of you that are joining us. So you've got to earn their attention by figuring out what their interest is. Now, I can't do this without getting in their shoes. That's a critical part of this whole thing. And so, by the way, if you're watching this live and you've got a question, I can see there's a bunch of you here. Feel free to ask a question. I'll be able to read them or lean forward and read them and be happy to answer them. But attention follows interest. So I've got to know where they're at, and then I've got to figure out what their interests are. Then I've got to get them here. Now, the thing that you may have heard before, been said forever, is that we've got to tune into their radio station, which is WIIFM. What's in it for me? We've got to answer that question for people. What's in it for me? And if I can do that, I've got a much better chance of making the connection happen. Now, the next point that I made this morning was that the data alone won't do it. Can't make the perfect PowerPoint slide, can't make the perfect pie chart that's going to get everyone's attention, it's going to earn their attention, it's going to get them to stay with you, it's going to keep them away from their phone, their mental vacation, making their shopping list, or whatever. So we've got to really think about what it is beyond the data. So I'm not saying that the data and the facts don't matter. I'm saying it's not enough. At the end of the day, we make decisions based on emotions, not necessarily weepy emotions or not necessarily jumping out of the chair emotions, but we don't just make decisions rationally, we make decisions emotionally. So we have to understand that, and we have to connect to that, and that if we try to sell people only with the data, it won't work. Now, let me back up. You're saying, sell, Kevin, I'm just giving a presentation. Well, you're giving a presentation to help move people to action of some sort. And if they're going to move toward action, then you got to give them some reason to make that action happen. The next bullet point says pain before pleasure. we tend to remember things negative longer than positive things. We tend to focus on the removal of, or the getting of not having loss more than of the possibility of success. Now, some people care more about one of those than the other, but if we're talking about an audience of people, in my case this week, with whether that's 40 people tomorrow, 400 plus people on Friday, the reality is that that group of people, what they want to do is avoid pain. So listen, more aspirin are sold than vitamins are sold. And so what we've got to make sure we're doing is that we're telling people how what we're sharing with them will keep them out of pain or reduce their pain. Now, if you're like me, you may think more about the other and talk to people about how they will benefit and what they will gain. And I'm not saying not to say those things. I'm just saying that pain before pleasure. Certainly you got to talk about both. You got to make sure that you're letting people know how what you're sharing will keep them away from or reduce their pain or reduce their loss, or before you talk about what they're going to gain, how they're going to gain this, this, and this. And so we want to have the balance, but it's got to be pain before pleasure. And then the last thing that I wrote about is this, that it's the message, not the tactic. And that takes us right back to Khrushchev, right? If he used the shoe. And I used to always think that that was a foregone thing, but maybe he did, maybe he didn't. But here's the thing. No one remembers the topic. Everyone remembers the shoe. So if you think, hey, the way I've got to get their attention is to tell a great joke, so first of all, that's hard to do. You may not be successful. Even if you are, it isn't necessarily going to solve your problem, because now you got their. Maybe you have the perfectly rehearsed joke, you tell the joke, and then all they can remember from your talk is the joke. It's not about the tactic. It's about the message. And if you do the other 5 things we've talked about, well, 6, if you include talking about energy, but if you will do the things that we've talked about and focus on the audience first, earning their attention, we got a lot better chance of success. It is about earning, not about getting. And tactics are about getting. How can I sort of hook them in? And the way I want to hook them is with self-interest and with understanding where they're coming from, and then speak to them from there, not speak to them from what you know. And so if you can do that, and if you can build that connection early, you got a much better chance. So it's not about a joke. It's not about a magic trick. It's not about something that will maybe get them to say, wow, this might be interesting. But then you lose them because you can't maintain that. So it's critical that we do this. Listen, all of us are giving presentations all the time. You may not be doing what I'm doing this week. You may not be doing what I'm doing right now. But if you've stayed, and a lot of you have, then I've done something to earn your attention. And I appreciate that chance. So before I go, if anyone has any questions, you can put them over there. You can type them in, and if you have them, I'll answer them. Otherwise, I'm going to close. And I'm going to thank you for your attention. I'm going to thank you for your time, which is what is really you gave me. And hopefully what I gave you was something of value that you can go out the next time you're presenting, that it will make a difference for you. More importantly, it'll make a difference for your audience. And I wish you great success in doing that. And I look forward to talking to it. Well, we may have something here. Let's see. I got a thanks, but let me see what else I've got here. There was telling you how to do it. Thank you, Marissa, for that. Listen, I want to thank you all for this. This has been an experiment. We'll probably try it again. Wish you great success this week. However you're presenting, 40, 400, for your kids, these lessons will work. I hope you take advantage of them. We'll talk to you all soon. Thanks, everybody.